I'll call to order the meeting of the Wilsonville City Council for February 2nd, 2026 at 7:04 p.m. Will the city recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Shevlin.
Here.
Council President Barry.
Here.
Councillor Cunningham.
Here.
Mayor O'Neill.
Here.
And Councillor Scholl is excused.
Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council President Barry, can I have a motion to approve the following order of agenda?
I move to approve the following order of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0. Welcome, everyone. Later in today's meeting, we will hold a public hearing to continue the December 15th public hearing regarding proposed fee increases to support the city's sewer and stormwater systems. At our prior hearing, the City Council heard clearly from residents about the impact that higher utility fees have on households and businesses. In response, the Council continued the public hearing tonight to allow additional time for staff to assemble and present further information and to ensure Council has the opportunity to fully understand the issues before any decisions are made. That additional information will be presented as part of the agenda item later this evening. At that time, staff will walk us through the material and respond to council questions so we can continue our deliberations in a thoughtful and transparent way. At this point, I'll continue with my business report. In a recent hearing before the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Congresswoman Andrea Salinas, who represents Wilsonville, Washington, D.C., testified on the need for infrastructure investments in her district. I want to thank her for highlighting the Boone Bridge in her remarks. As part of our recent Wilsonville delegation visit to Washington, D.C., the Boone Bridge was our central focus and top priority in meetings we had with our federal legislative partners, including Congresswoman Salinas. She underscored both the bridge's critical role in interstate commerce and the very real risk of catastrophic failure in a major seismic event, concerns we have consistently raised on behalf of our community. With that, tomorrow, the Joint Committee on Ways and Means at the state legislature is holding a public hearing on proposed agency reductions to balance the state budget. Part of the proposed reductions, including clawing back $108,000 from the $1 million Senator Courtney Neuron-Mislin secured for the project last year, specifically the Boone Bridge. I will be down in Salem testifying in support of keeping that funding whole, since it is crucial to our effort to secure federal funding. All members of the public are welcome to testify at the hearing, and I encourage Wilsonville residents to show their support for the Boone Bridge replacement project. The meeting will be in hearing room 40 in the Oregon State Capitol in Salem from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Testimony is limited to 1 to 2 minutes and can be done in person or virtually. You can also submit written testimony. You can also, in doing so, visit olis.oregonlegislator.gov and select the Joint Committee on Ways and Means for information on how to register or submit testimony. For the balance of my report, I'll just briefly note some of the regional and local meetings and events I attended since our last City Council meeting. I attended the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, the Washington County Coordinating Committee. I presented along with City Council the Wilsonville Civics Academy, and I toured the Aurora State Airport with Councilors Cunningham and Skoll. I also attended the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium to discuss regional issues impacting Wilsonville. I attended the Clackamas County Mayor's meeting with Chair Craig Roberts, again highlighting city priorities and discussing the counties. And I attended town halls this past weekend with Senator Courtney Nuran-Mislin and Representative Sue Reike-Smith, where I raised Wilsonville's priorities and needs. Our next city council meeting will be on Thursday, February 19th, starting at 7 p.m. As Monday, February 16th, the city is closed in observance of President's Day. With that, I'll turn to, since there's no communication piece this evening, I'll turn to citizens' input and community announcements. We will move now into that. This is an opportunity for visitors to address the City Council on any matter concerning city's business or any matter over which the council has control. It is also the time to address items not on the agenda. It's also the time to address items that are on the agenda but not scheduled for public hearing. So if we have a public hearing later this evening, 2 of them, please reserve those comments until that public hearing. Staff will make every effort to respond to questions raised during community input as quickly as possible following the council meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please, when conveying your remarks, whatever they may be, please speak to the council as a whole and not directly to any one member of council during your comments. Also, please note you can use the podium or sit at the tables in front of council. Whatever makes you feel more comfortable, please make sure you talk into the microphone at either location. To comment before council in person or virtually, you must sign up either by completing a speaker card at the side of the room or by using the raise hand feature in Zoom. You'll need to provide your name, address, and topic you will be discussing. Information on engaging with City Council can be found on the City Council's webpage, wilsonvilleoregon.gov/City Council. As a reminder, when you begin your comments, state your name for the record and state your address or state that your address is provided on your speaker card. Please note that this is not the only way to communicate with the council or me. You are welcome to submit information in writing or via email. Additionally, I encourage you to schedule a meeting with me or any of the other councilors to discuss your concerns further. With that, I will call John Budayo.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Badeo. I live at 8164 Southwest Edgewater West. Tonight I want to talk about business here in Wilsonville. We need to attract bigger businesses here to Wilsonville. Since I've been here, I've seen Xerox Park disappear and shrink in its usage. Not much is happening there. I've watched Cabela's be considered for here, and yet it never came. I watched Home Depot get turned away, and one of the big concerns that I was told was that it was going to have a big traffic impact, and yet we have a bike lane that's 99% never used. One representative told me that it's because we want to be more metropolitan like DC and New York. Well, the news flashes, I've been there, and the bikers use the sidewalk instead of taking up a lane. These money problems that we are having could have been mitigated to a point with more business here in Wilsonville. Each of you represent Wilsonville, and at these meetings, each of you go over your schedule and events, meetings, and travel. The second part of that should be return on investment. I did like what I heard about the bridge and things that are going on there, but when you go out and about and you meet with people, it should be, I met with so-and-so to further the city's plans for X, or I spoke to a whole group about the future of Wilsonville. I went to, something of those natures. Speaking of schedules, attend a high school football game, baseball game, even the robotics for the high school. Some of our future here in Wilsonville will come back. I find it sad that our Chamber of Commerce has dwindled over the years to almost nothing. We just don't have the business supported anymore. Here are some answers that I've come up with just in the small time I've been here this evening. Cultivate businesses for what they are still here. go to the restaurants and find out what is their worst day and say, hey, come have dinner with me. Let's support this small town business. Support our local car dealerships with signage that they've been asking for forever. Subaru, Toyota, Nissan are huge contributors to our community, as I've seen. We should try to see how we can help these businesses and not stifle their sales. Boston Pub and Vanguard, over the years, two businesses that could use a boost in their business by just having canopies for the rainy season or even the hot season. I know if I drove by and saw a bunch of people eating there, it would attract me to their business. These small things make a big difference in our area, and we entrust in each of you that represent us to support our small businesses. And even beyond that, attract other businesses here. I was asked not too long ago, what business would I attract here? Specifically, I'd attract Allegiance Flags to come make their flags here in the United States. God bless you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ken Rice.
My name's Ken Rice. My address is on file. I was here to talk about the process that we're dealing with this evening. I attended the December meeting. My alarm goes off at 5 a.m. I can't stay until 10, 11 o'clock at night. I sat here through the last meeting listening to city councilors saying, look, there's a lot of people here to speak. I'm going to keep my, what I have to say short, and then they rambled on for 20 minutes about some pancake breakfast they went to. The city sat here and presented for over an hour telling us, how they mismanaged and got us into this position. And I never got to speak because I had to go home and go to bed so I could get up and go to work. Okay. I live alone in my home. I don't even use the minimum amount of water. I'm already paying more than my share. So, thank you.
Elizabeth Peters.
Mayor and Council, I'm Elizabeth Peters, and my address is on file. And I'm giving you a handout that has all the data that I'm referring to in my testimony. I was looking through a city presentation from last December that included population projections for Wilsonville. It showed our population growing to a little over 34,000 by 2030. Since we're currently around 27,000, a little bit more, that number caught my attention. It seemed very optimistic, so I decided to take a closer look. I ended up reading some recent OPB coverage on Oregon's population trends. This led me to data from Portland State University's Population Research Center. Now, that data shows that Oregon is now seeing more deaths than births. So any population growth we have is coming entirely from people moving into the state. When you look specifically at Wilsonville, PSU's more recent estimates don't really line up with the numbers that were used when some of the city's master plans were put together years ago. The reality is, we're just not growing the way we were 20 years or even 10 years ago. Between 2000 and 2010, Wilsonville was growing at nearly 3% per year. Since 2020, that growth rate has been much slower, closer to about 0.5% per year, with the most recent year around 0.6%. That's a big slowdown compared to the early 2000s. So if we take our current relatively flat growth rate of 0.6%, and project it out to 2030, Wilsonville's population would land at just over 28,000, not 34,000 as earlier projections assumed. So I'm sharing this because I felt it was important for you to have this as you think about projects and possible rate increases this year. I think it's worth clearly separating projects that are based on future population growth from those meant to serve the people who are already here. Things have changed a lot in the past few years. Our growth outlook isn't what it used to be. Taking a new look at those assumptions now can help assure we're not putting unnecessary financial pressure on our residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Paul Bunn?
Good evening. My name is Paul Bunn, and I live at 7251 Southwest Linwood Court in Wilsonville Meadows. I would like to speak tonight about Mayor O'Neill's January 22nd presentation related to the appointment process for city boards and commissions. First, here's a short history of my time in Wilsonville. My wife and I moved to Wilsonville in 1990 and raised our 3 children here. Since moving to Wilsonville, I have provided over 19 years of volunteer civic service on both the Planning Commission, 6 years as chair, and Budget Committee, 2 terms. My comments tonight reflect perspectives that I developed over those 19 years. First, I found the process outlined by Mayor O'Neill in his presentation as specific, relevant, balanced, and attainable. Here are some examples of what I found commendable. Mayor O'Neill outlines different section criteria based on whether an applicant is applying for a Tier 1 Budget Committee, Planning Commission, or Development Review Board, or Tier 2 DEI Tourist Promotion Committee. Mayor O'Neill's designation of Tier 1 and Tier 2 committees based on their potential for direct impact on the business and planning of the city is new to me, makes perfect sense. As he defines Tier 1 committees as those who potentially are most consequential to how the city functions, his Tier 1 selection criteria reflects this important. Consider the following: readiness to serve, which includes both technical and soft skills, which includes an evaluation of an applicant's judgment, temperament, ability to listen, and finally, a commitment to serve the whole city rather than arrive with a specific grievance or agenda. Please note that based on my 19 years of civic service, especially as Planning Commission Chair, I fully agree with the above criteria. Mayor O'Neill also makes clear that any applicant must complete participation in the Wilsonville Civics Academy. Finally, Mayor O'Neill makes clear that he is obligated by the city charter to assume responsibility for the overall selection process. Well, at the same time, he outlines a process whereby there are opportunities for review and input throughout the whole process by senior staff and city council members. Some might question the value of some of the selection criteria that I discussed above, but no one can say, in my opinion, such criteria lack specificity or transparency. Now, to give further perspective, when I applied for the Planning Commission late 1990s and the Budget Committee mid-2000s, I had to complete an online application, but nowhere did I recall were the selection criteria so clearly defined. Finally, it's my belief that the application selection criteria outlined by the mayor on January 22nd provides a high level of transparency, which I highly applaud. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Barkman?
Good evening, I'm Lee Barkman. My address is on file. Excuse me. I want to thank the mayor for his recent comments supporting the people at risk for detention by ICE. And I hope that the city council will take a further step in that regard. And I'm saying this because I think it's mostly because I respect police. I lived through a time when that wasn't always true. If you recently saw on CNN, they had a documentary called 1968, where the Chicago police unprovoked beat the heck out of hundreds and hundreds of people in the park in Chicago. I watched that as a high schooler. And basically, for the next decade, police were disrespected in this country. They were called pigs. Movies were basically filled with corrupt cops and brutal cops and stupid cops. And this had a huge effect. I'm sure it had even a worse effect on our policemen. But we don't feel that way anymore. Certainly I don't. And I think everybody here basically has a deep respect for what the police do. But now we're in a situation where we're seeing law enforcement, quote unquote, ICE, brutalize people. And I think it's incumbent on the city council to basically take further steps to make sure that we're in line with the Constitution and with the civil rights of the people who live here. That basically, Beaverton recently had a resolution that they're not going to cooperate with ICE if they come in. The governor has a task force putting together ways that we can basically help mitigate this invasion by unconstitutional force that's a personal militia of the president. Finally, I'd like to just basically read a statement by the Minnesota police chief, O'Hara, recently. He said this: police have an absolute duty to intervene if they witness federal immigration officials using unlawful force or violating civil rights amid an ongoing operation. Police will face termination if they fail to intervene. I don't know if you want to go that far, but I think you should basically let our police know that they have a responsibility to protect us. Thank you.
Andrew Engel.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Engel, and my information is on the speaker card. Earlier, as the Urban Renewal Agency, you voted for an Urban Renewal Plan amendment that would grant the Urban Renewal Agency the ability to buy and sell land in the Coffee Creek development area. I think that sounds great. I assume that you are going to vote again as council to approve that council-approved amendment by the Urban Renewal Agency. I assume that is in the interest of best policy in order to bring in more industrial development, in order to get businesses building out our northwest corner of our city. And I assume that's going to pay itself back in taxes, in future payrolls, in activity in the city coming in economically. That sounds great. Today you can do that, and that policy change can take effect immediately. But if the urban renewal ballot measure succeeds in May, this sort of motion would receive an automatic 90-day hold, and the possibility that just 5% of Wilsonville voters, just a few hundred people, could tie your hands on this measure, force it to a ballot vote, and potentially, depending on what time of year this type of a movement came around, you would be waiting for a measure up to a year and a half to find out if the voters would or would not let you take this kind of administrative change. I can respect your efforts and intentions to stay neutral and let Wilsonville voters decide regarding the ballot measure. But one of you already put a ton of weight behind the petition in the first place, so that ship has kind of sailed. I'd be delighted if you shed your passive approach and engaged with your full voices in this important conversation about the future of this city. The ballot measure doesn't have to block urban renewal outright. It just has to stack the deck. Stack it against substantial changes, stack it against minor changes, stack it against elected officials successfully implementing long-range, civically minded plans for the city. Stack it against renovating blight. Stack it against fixing underperforming areas of the city. Commercial, industrial, residential, it doesn't matter what the plan encompasses. It's in the best interest of Wilsonville to kill this ballot measure. And I would love to see you having this conversation publicly with the citizens of Wilsonville about what this measure means for our city. Part of the reason our growth has plateaued in the past few years is because we're not seeing the build-out that we should be seeing either in Town Center or in Frog Pond East and West. Those developments have slowed. Frog Pond is not subject to urban renewal, but Town Center is. We've been waiting 8 years for that proposed plan to get funded and start getting built. Yeah, you're going to see your population drop off, and then you're going to see your funding disappear for the future infrastructure improvements that you need when those ratepayers are not present in the city. So please, figure out what you need to do to have this conversation for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Anderson.
Hello, my name is Nancy Anderson, and my address is on file with the speaker's card. I just want to say how blessed I feel to have our mayor, and that I stand with him and with DEI in Wilsonville. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Diller.
Hi, my name is Paul Diller, and my address is on file. I live in the Wilsonville Meadows neighborhood. First, I wanted to thank Mayor O'Neill. This was a couple of months ago, but thank him for attending the Hanukkah celebration that was at Memorial Park, Marase Plaza, that came a day or two after the horrific Bondi Beach massacre in Australia, and it meant a lot to people in the Jewish community here to see an elected official there, our mayor, and the First Lady as well. So I wanted to mention that. I was going to speak mostly about transportation and transit. I commute to Salem. My wife commutes to Portland. We both try to take public transportation when it's convenient. I have actually, because of the Beckman Dip, started biking from my neighborhood to the transit center, and boy, the Beckman Dip has been just outstanding. I can see kids I know through my kids' school, crossing the dip the other way, going to school, and just to have that kind of connectivity in the town is just fantastic. If I have one suggestion, it would be maybe the city could think proactively about graffiti prevention, because there's a lot of kind of blank canvas there. Maybe some kind of public art or planting or something, just to get ahead of any problems. I haven't seen any graffiti, but we want to make sure we don't get any. We also might want to reach out to some of the drivers in town through maybe the Boone's Ferry Messenger about how you signal when you go through a circle. I remember once staying in Sun River, and the place I stayed had some instructions on, signal when you leave the circle. So I'm not sure everybody has gotten that message. I didn't know that until some years ago. Transit center looks great. The Vuela is really coming along, looks fantastic. I hear a couple people have moved in. Looking forward to that opening, and I hear there's supposed to be a business or two in there. That should be great. The 1X service that I take to Salem is generally very reliable. The service is very professional. There are bike racks on every bus. One thing the city might consider, if it ever replaces the buses, is to have more of a long-term or long-distance bus like Salem Chariots has, with reclining seats and reading lights. I'm not trying to be spoiled or gild the lily here, but sometimes I try to wait to take a Chariots bus back because it's a little more comfortable. So if we ever upgrade our fleet, that's one possibility. The last thing I want to say is, as councilors may know and the mayor may know, TriMet, with whom we've always had kind of a testy relationship since we pulled out as a city in the 1980s, is threatening, once again with the budget cuts, to reroute the 96, which is the only bus that comes to Wilsonville, and have it be a long, winding bus through Lake Oswego that would take probably 2 or 3 times as long as it does now. So I urge you to reach out to TriMet about concerns about that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Okay. Oh. Do you have someone online? Okay. Jennifer Constantine, you can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Constantine. My information's on file. I just wanted to thank Mayor O'Neill for coming out to our protest on January 25th. Despite what some say, we are protesting to maintain every person's rights as granted in our Constitution. The right to peacefully assemble, the right to have a free press, the right to due process for all people, not just all citizens. With the unlawful killings of Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and many others, we can no longer stay silent. You are either on the side of our constitutional rights, law and order, or you're not. It doesn't take a moment's thought for me to decide which side I'm on. I thank the mayor for standing up for those rights as well. I will continue to speak up for everyone's rights, even if they choose not to. I encourage everyone who believes in the United States Constitution to do the same. So if you see us out there with signs, just smile and wave. After all, we are standing up for your rights too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any more for citizens' comment? Okay. Now turning to counselor comments, liaison reports, and meeting announcements. Council President Barry.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody who takes their time to come to our meetings and that sends us emails with their opinions. We do listen. I don't always get a chance to reply right away, but I do value your input, and I think my colleagues here also do. Let's see, you mentioned the Civics Academy earlier. I also attended it with all my colleagues. The Civics Academy is an opportunity that the city puts together, I think once a year, for about 30 applicants that are selected to learn about the city operations. They meet all the different department heads. They get to do a tour of some different facilities. I think the Smart Transit facility in Coffee Creek, and go down to the state. It's a wonderful opportunity to learn more about how the city is run and to learn how you might want to engage a little bit more. I attended the very first Civics Academy. It was back then in 2015. It was called the Leadership Academy, and it was really a great experience. I met some fabulous people, and I learned a lot, and then I started getting active in the city, and I invite you to also. So one of the things that I was planning on doing last Saturday with Councilor Skull is to have like a coffee connect, to invite people to come and meet with us and just chat with whatever's on your mind. And then we were advised that we have to be really careful these days about the Oregon's serial meeting laws that prohibits It prohibits members of public bodies from using chain or individual private communications to discuss public business. So our Coffee Connect was postponed. Hopefully we'll do it sometime in the future, but we're waiting for the legislature to kind of smooth out those rough ends. And I really believe communication is really important. And I think civic engagement is really important. Of course, that's why I'm here. So there are some upcoming activities that I wanted to highlight. Let's see. On February 4th, there's the Walk and Roll to School Day, and it's a winter that's a tongue twister, walk and roll to school organized by SMART, which is our local transit system, a partnership with the Oregon Safe Routes to School. So I hope that you encourage your children or your grandchildren to participate, and maybe you can join them too. On February 10th, there's going to be an open house for the new roundabout that is being planned for Stafford and 65th and Elgin intersection. Clackamas County, in partnership with Washington County and the city of Wilsonville, is undertaking this project to design and construct roundabouts in the three-way intersection. It's also going to widen some travel lanes, add some bike lanes, replace a culvert at the Beckman Creek for the fish safe passageway, and other safety improvements. So if you're interested, you can find out more on the website with the city of Wilsonville, and please participate. it's a good opportunity, and maybe they'll teach us how to signal when we're going through the roundabouts. There's also an open house, let's see, on Tuesday, February 10th, in the upstairs Willamette River Conference Room here at City Hall to learn more about the project. Then DEI is offering some different events on February 17th. They're celebrating the Lunar New Year. It's going to be over at the Community Center in the afternoon. There's more information on the website. I hope you can come. February 17th is the beginning of Ramadan, which is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar, so you can learn more about that. February is Black History Month, and there's different events. And then also there's a daughter-daddy dance on February 20th. So lots and lots of different activities. The website's full of information, so is the Boone's Messenger. So please, please participate. And that's my report.
Thank you. Counselor Cunningham.
Thank you. Just a couple updates over the last couple of weeks. On January 16th, I accepted an invitation to go and tour the Children's Center in Clackamas County. It's a center for children who have been abused to go, and it's a kind of a one-stop shop to come and be interviewed, forensic interviews, physical interviews, whatever those things that are needed. It's no cost to those who utilize it, and it's an amazing service. It's an amazing setup. It doesn't feel scary and clinical. It feels like a little house almost, and they have a lot of wraparound services that go with that and help out a lot of families. I believe, if I remember the number correctly off the top of my head, last year they helped about 540 families and children. A really good resource that's here in our county. I'm sure that it's something that has been utilized by the citizens of our town before, and just something to be aware of as we go forward. They, just like everybody else, they're facing funding issues. They're trying to figure out how to close some of those gaps and keep some of those services going to be able to have all the services that they currently offer maintained. So something to look into if it's of interest or a passion of anyone to take a look. It's called the Children's Center here in Clackamas County. Then on January 20th, I also attended that Aurora Airport tour with the mayor and Councilor Skoll. It was a very enlightening tour. It was very interesting to see some of the operations down there. We toured Life Flight, an amazing resource that we have right here in our backyard. Some of you might be aware of that collision that occurred on the freeway a couple of weeks ago with the wrong-way driver. Life Flight came and was there within minutes to airlift the most severely injured to the hospital and probably saved a life. An amazing resource that we have right here in our backyard. They're able to get off the ground and heading your way in about 10 minutes, and then zip you to whatever hospital they need to get you to. So that can't be understated. We also toured the helicopter transport services facility out there, an amazing, huge facility of firefighting helicopters, also large utility construction and transport. Another amazing resource we have right here in our backyard when it comes to firefighting and the ability to deploy these large helicopters. I believe, do you remember, it was it 2,500 gallons they could suck up in 45 seconds? Yeah. Pretty amazing equipment out there that they have going on. And then we were also able to tour one of the small businesses there at the airport called Aero Metal. And they're actually currently working on their biggest project ever. They're working on General MacArthur's plane from World War II called the Baton, and doing a full renovation on that. Very cool operation they have there. They do a lot of old fighter planes and things like that. And a lot of cool stuff, a lot of business going on down there, and a lot of resources that rely on businesses here in Wilsonville as well. So those were kind of the big highlights from the last couple of weeks. And that's all I have for my comments tonight.
Thank you. Counselor Shavlin?
Thank you. And thank you for everyone that's here tonight and anyone else that's watching online. I'm out of respect for the gentleman that has to get up early and would like to be able to speak tonight, I'm not going to talk about flipping any pancakes, but I'm going to just curtail my messages. I went to 12 different meetings over the last 4 weeks, so that's a lot of meetings. I'm representing your community. I'm not sure if the gentleman that asked that we talk about what we talked about when we go to our meetings, but I always represent your interests. I represent the city as far as you, the citizens, and your concerns. So the coffees that I have, the meetings that I have with small groups are always about what are the priorities for our city? How can we best communicate with one another? How can we make the right decisions, meaning all of you and all of us together make the right decisions for our city? So that's what my efforts are in all the meetings that I've been at. I will share some, I believe, exciting news because we worry about blight and we worry about buildings that are closed and look run down. Matt Lorenzen, our City Economic Development Manager, shared with me last month that the Sherry's Restaurant is due to be torn down this year, probably May through summertime, right in that area. It'll be completely razed. The property owner is going to be starting to build a building there in January of next year. He found out, the property owner, that he has some significant tax advantages that are available to him if he starts building next year rather than if he starts building this year. So that is an area that we can look forward to seeing the building come down, the empty building, and the weeds go away and flat. And then next winter, next January, we'll be able to see some growth in that area. So I look forward to that. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is our consent agenda. Will the city attorney please read the items on consent?
Resolution number 3217, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville acting in its capacity as the local contract review board approving the bid process, accepting the proposal which will best serve the interest of the city, and awarding a contract to Green Sweep Asphalt Surfaces LLC for the project known as Street Sweeping Services. Resolution number 3233, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville ratifying approval of a grant agreement between Wilsonville and the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD, for the Housing Statutory Compliance Project. Resolution number 3236, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville approving a council-approved amendment to the Coffee Creek Urban Renewal Plan, which allows the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Wilsonville to acquire, option, prepare, including but not limited to pursuing land use actions, aggregate, hold, sell, resell, and/or encumber real property in the urban renewal area, and minutes of the December 15, 2025, and January 5, 2026 City Council meetings.
You did that all without breathing. I'm impressed.
I'll catch my breath now.
Like Kenny G.
City Council President Barry, can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0. Tonight, there is no continuing new business or continuing business, so we'll go right into the public hearings. Tonight, we'll have continued public hearings on resolution number 3229 and resolution number 3230, which were continued from December 15th, 2025 meeting. The continued public hearing will first be taken up as it relates to resolution number 3229, a resolution establishing and imposing just and equitable sewer user fees, and repealing resolution number 2325 and resolution number 1987. The order of the procedure for tonight's hearing is set out in detail in our city code. In brief, we will start with a staff report. Next, the public will be asked to provide testimony. I will ask everyone who signed up in advance to testify first in the order in which they signed up. Then I will ask if anyone present in council chambers would like to testify, and then I will ask anyone who is on the Zoom meeting who has not testified but would like to testify to do so. For those in the audience, please fill out a speaker card and provided to the city recorder. For those on Zoom, if you want to provide public testimony remotely during this meeting, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 or your telephone to notify the city recorder you wish to speak when the time for public testimony is called. If you're having difficulties, if you're having If you're having difficulties with these instructions, you may call 1-669-900-6833, and when prompted, enter webinar ID number 815-3605-6468. Both numbers are shown on the screen. When you begin your testimony, please state your name and address for the record, or you may state that your address is as provided to staff. After each person testifies, counselors may pose questions to me to be addressed by the person who testified or to staff to clarify any information that was conveyed in the testimony. Once the City Council has heard from everyone and the City Council is satisfied it has all the information it needs to render a decision, the public hearing will be closed. Council deliberates, and I will announce the result. We wish to hear from everyone who wants to testify. However, we request that you refrain from repeating testimony already given by someone else. If you agree with what someone before you has said, please provide your testimony indicating that you concur with what has been previously said. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. We will time the testimony and provide you with a visual warning when there is 1 minute remaining. And I have one question to our city attorney. When we have public testimony that's been signed up, that's been presented to me, it's generic on things. So it's conceivable someone's going to be called on one resolution when they may want to speak on the second, vice versa. Does it matter, and how do
I think you can just ask each person at the beginning, particularly on this first item, since staff is requesting a continuance.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, with that, I'll now open the hearing on resolution number 3229 at 7:51 p.m. Mr. Weigel and Mr. Katko is there. Is he here tonight?
He's in the back.
He's in the back? Oh, he's hiding, okay. And they'll continue their staff presentation on resolution 3229.
All right, good evening, Mayor O'Neill and council. My name is Zach Weigel, I'm the city engineer. And first item tonight is the resolution 3229. And staff is recommending that council continue this resolution to the March 16th city council meeting. This will allow staff more time to address council's questions that were raised at the December 15th public meeting or public hearing. As an update, staff are currently reviewing the population growth projections, and we're using data that is more recent, specifically using the housing needs and capacity analysis that was adopted last year to see what more current population projections for the city are. With that population projection, we may be able to push out some of those larger wastewater treatment plant projects, and that will allow for longer implementation of that sewer utility fee implementation. We're also reviewing utility assistance programs to get to address the council concerns that were raised at the last public hearing as well. We're taking a look at what other cities and agencies are doing, and we'll have more information on those programs for your consideration also at the March 16th meeting. That concludes the staff presentation.
So when I'm understanding that in the March meeting, you need more time to deal with the affordability analysis that we presented as a key issue of the council, and the issue about project timing and sequencing after you capture what the population is to see if we can push some projects out.
That's
Is that
correct?
correct? Yeah. And, okay. And what about a less burdensome way to pay for these necessary improvements, other ideas?
There's basically utility fees and system development charges. City Council adopted the maximum defensible system development charge in October, and as far as other utilities or other funding sources, I'm not sure what those would be. We can bring Keith up if he has ideas, but
Okay, and those could come up in the March meeting as well.
Well, what we'd be looking at is rate assistance programs,
Okay.
not affordability programs are different than rate assistance. So it'd be more income-based programs that other cities have implemented. That's what we would be bringing back to council.
Okay. With that, does any counselor have any question at this point?
Only that, I'm not sure your mic is loud enough. I want to just make sure that those in the audience are able to hear you as well. Thank
okay.
you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll just have it closer. Thanks.
City Council President Barry?
Yeah, I just really appreciate that the staff listened to the council, and the council was listening to all the comments that we received, that there is a concern and that we want to revisit the population and how we're calculating and what projects, the priority list. And so I'm really excited to come back on the March 16th and hear what staff has to say. It sounds like there could be some good stuff.
Anything else? All right. Folks, the public hearing on Resolution 3229 will likely be continued to March 16th, 2026, with new information from staff. We have to formally do that later in the process. But if anyone wants to comment now for public testimony on the sewer rates, they may, or you can hold off until that later hearing. So just let me know if I call your name, I guess, whether or not you want to reserve your time. For public testimony, we will start with the people who signed up in advance to testify. Please remember to include your name and address for the record. Staff, if people have signed up in advance, who is our first person to testify this evening? And I think I have one at least. Steve Gashler.
Mayor and councilors, my name is Steve Gashler. I'm a Wilsonville resident, and my address information is on my speaker card. I'm actually speaking to both items, and I guess I would be an opponent of both items as they currently stand. It's more general comments on both items, so I'll get with it and start reading this. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight regarding the proposed stormwater and wastewater rate increases. I want to begin with the simple truth. Elections have consequences. The decisions made by city leadership today will directly affect every household in Wilsonville for years to come. And the burdens of these decisions will fall squarely on the residents who pay the bills. The rate increases being proposed are extreme. Many families are struggling with rising costs of housing, utilities, groceries, and fuel. A roughly $33 per month, Wilsonville's proposed stormwater fee would likely be among the highest in the Portland metro region, far above comparable communities such as Clean Water Services and Gresham. To now ask them to absorb a dramatic increase in stormwater and wastewater charges raises serious concerns about fairness, planning, and accountability. What makes these especially troubling is that many of these replacements and infrastructure requirements have been known for many years. They are not sudden discoveries, or unexpected emergencies. City staff and leadership have understood the deficiencies in the stormwater system for a long time. Likewise, population growth was no surprise. Wilsonville has been growing steadily for decades. Development has continued and expansion has been planned. These future demands should have been anticipated through responsible, long-term financial management. The reality is the moderate rate increases implemented years ago could have reduced the need for this kind of severe shock today. A gradual, predictable approach would have been far easier for residents to absorb while still allowing the city to make steady progress on capital improvements. Instead, we are now facing a proposal that feels rushed, urgent, and disproportionate, almost as though past delays are being corrected all at once, the expense of today's ratepayers. And that brings me back to the larger point. In the end, we the people bear ultimate responsibility for the choices made in our community. We elect the leaders, we approve priorities, and we live with the consequences. Ultimately, a community will have the leadership that it demands and the leadership that it deserves. I urge the council to slow the process down, reconsider these extreme increases, and pursue a more balanced and credible path forward, one that reflects long-term responsibility rather than short-term financial shock. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, for any community members who want to speak on both items, I would recommend that you wait until the stormwater item is discussed because there is additional staff information that's being presented at that time. But it's up to you to decide when you want to testify.
Okay, thank you. Patrick, Tom, you have both stormwater and sewer rates. You want to wait till the stormwater? Does that work? Okay, thanks. Ruth Webster, would you like to wait until you're next, but would you like to wait until stormwater? Okay, feel free.
I'm here.
Well, you'll be able to speak a little bit later. I just didn't know if you wanted to be heard during sewer rates that we may be postponing.
Later tonight as opposed to the March
Yes.
one? All right, then I'll wait.
Okay. Fair enough. Karen Bradley, same question.
Always.
Thank you. Okay. Tim Warham? Okay. Thank you, folks. Is there anyone on Zoom at all? Okay. With that, does any counselor have any comments of staff or any of the prior testimony? Okay, great. Does the city council wish to further continue the hearing on resolution number 3229, a resolution establishing and imposing just and equitable sewer user fees, and repealing resolution number 2325 and resolution number 1987 to March 16, 2026 at 7 p.m.? Please indicate by making a motion to do so. Please state the specific date and time to when the hearing will be continued.
I move to continue the sewer rate resolution number 3229 to March 16th when we have more information.
So just to be clear, it's to continue the public hearing on resolution number 3229 to 7 p.m. on March 16th, 2026.
So moved.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0. So that concludes that hearing at 8:02. Oh,
It's not concluded, it's just continued.
continue, excuse me. Gosh. At least you're doing it a lot earlier than we did last time. So the hearing on resolution number 3229 is continued until 7 p.m. on March 16, 2026. Now, turning to resolution number 3230. We'll now proceed with the continued public hearing on resolution number 3230, resolution establishing and imposing just and equitable stormwater user fees and repealing resolution number 2325 and resolution number 2353. The order of procedure for tonight's hearing is set out in the detail in our city code. In brief, we will start with a staff report. Next, the public will be asked to provide testimony. I will ask everyone who signed up in advance to testify first in the order in which they signed up. Then I will ask if anyone present in city council chambers would like to testify, and then I will ask, has anyone who might be in the Zoom meeting who has not testified but would like to testify to do so? For those in the audience, please fill out a speaker card and provide to the city recorder. I know this is redundant, you've heard it before, but I have to do it because the city attorney will get mad, so it's just the process. For those on Zoom, if you want to provide public testimony remotely during this meeting, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 on your telephone to notify the city recorder you wish to speak when the time for public testimony is called. If you're having difficulties with these instructions, you may call 1-669-900-6833, and when prompted, enter webinar ID number 815-3605-6468. Both numbers are shown on the screen. When you begin your testimony, please state your name and address for the record, or you may state that your address is as provided to staff. After each person testifies, counselors may pose questions to me to be addressed by the person who testified or to staff to clarify any information that was conveyed in the testimony. Once the city council has heard from everyone and the city council is satisfied it has all the information it needs to render a decision, the public hearing will be closed. Council deliberates, and I will announce the result. We wish to hear from everyone who wants to testify. However, we request that you refrain from repeating testimony already given by someone else. If you agree with what someone before you has said, please provide your testimony indicating that you concur with what has been previously said. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. We will time the testimony and provide you with a visual warning when there is 1 minute remaining. The continued public hearing on Resolution 3230 is now open at 8:05 p.m. Mr. Weigel, please proceed.
All right, how's that? A lot better? Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor O'Neill and Council. My name again is Zach Weigel, the city engineer. And tonight before you is Resolution 3230, continuation of the public hearing on December 15th. And consideration of adoption of this resolution tonight. The resolution will establish stormwater utility rate adjustments and an addition of an annual inflation adjustment, and will discontinue the stormwater utility rate exemption. I thought it would be helpful. I know, so at the December 15th meeting, council had asked staff to take a look at the projects in the stormwater plan and see if any of those could be eliminated or pushed back. And I wanted to, show you, this is the stormwater master plan that was adopted in 2024. And this plan represents $530,000 worth of engineering work to develop this plan, and hundreds of hours of modeling the stormwater system, of putting in gauges and streams and pipelines and measuring flow, of reviewing videotapes of inspections of pipelines, interviewing community members, interviewing businesses, going through records of repairs and issues with pipelines, interview with public works staff, all to arrive at that map of projects that are priorities for the system. And I would say that all of those projects represent either represent correction of deficient pipelines, addressing localized flooding areas, or improving water quality runoff that is required of our MPDS permit. So when we take a look at those projects, there's really none that can be eliminated completely. They're all very important projects that are needed over the next 20 years. So as far as like, can we push some of those projects out? This is a list of the highest cost priority projects that are needed over the next 5 years. When we look at those projects, you can see that there's a couple of them that support fixing existing flooding issues that are in the Coffee Creek area. Those projects also have a SDC component because they, not in addition to fixing additional flooding areas, they also provide additional capacity for future industrial development in those areas. So development helps correct those flooding areas. There's also a number of projects for Charbonneau that you can see in there, Miley Road and Charbonneau Consolidated Plan stormwater improvements. So I have some slides later on about, the condition of those pipelines and why it's so urgent that those projects be addressed. So when we looked at these priority projects, these are the ones that are really driving the need for that increase in the rate on a short schedule. And we don't see a way to move these projects out further. They're all key projects in the next 5 years. Oops. One of the things that council requested of staff at the December 15th meeting was to bring some alternatives, to look at some rate alternatives. And this screen is a little bit difficult to read. Hopefully it's easier to read on the screen above me, but so we created 3 additional alternatives for your consideration, and had a number of listed what the impacts of those alternatives would be. Just for explanation, this is the increase in what's called an equivalent residential unit. So that's the monthly increase on each of those years. So an ERU, one single family or one residential home pays 1 ERU. And all other uses pay a multiple of the ERU based on what their impervious surface of their site is. So that first option is the option that was presented on December 15th in terms of the rate. So you see $4.22 increase on that first year, up to $7.75 in the third year. Option 2, we took that same kind of rate structure and tried to flatten it out over the same 3-year period. And that ended up with $5.75 increase per month each of those 3 years. What that does is it has a slight increase in that first year, but also helps mitigate that $7.75 increase in the third year. The benefit of this option, it doesn't have a negative impact to the revenue that's generated, and it doesn't result in a delay of any of those priority projects. Option 3 that we looked at was keeping that flat implementation schedule, but spreading it out over 5 years instead of 3. You can see that ends up in $4.15 increase each of those 5 years. What that does, because the revenue is less in that first 4 years, is you end up with about $2.8 million in lost revenue. And what that does, it results in about a 3-year delay in some of those priority stormwater projects. Option 4 also was looking at if you wanted to have a reduced rate in that first year and then slowly escalate by 50 cents each year over a 5-year period, and what that would do. That has pretty significant impacts in the revenue, $4.2 million loss in the first 4 years before it evens out, and then about a 4 to 5 year delay in priority projects. When we look at that list of what priority projects can be delayed, it really is about deferred maintenance, and it really comes down to the Charbonneau Consolidated projects are the ones that would probably have to be delayed. And I'll have some slides on to why that presents the city some risk and for your consideration. One thing I did want to point out is on all 4 of these options, you can see that just a slight difference in the rate increase for each year. does have significant impact on the revenue that's generated. So if you change it by 90 cents to $1, it does have a pretty big impact. So, I want to talk a little bit about risk, and that's associated with delay of stormwater projects and why there's such an urgency to go forward with a utility rate adoption. I know we touched on this last meeting on December 15th, but this is a real-world example. It's right here in Wilsonville that demonstrates the impacts of a deteriorating stormwater system. These photos are from Charbonneau in 2019. The photo on the left is inside of a stormwater pipe, an outfall there on the Willamette River near Old Farm Road in Charbonneau. That picture was taken as part of the initial design kickoff for the replacement of this stormwater outfall pipe. It was undersized, and we knew it was in pretty bad condition. And it was part of the Charbonneau, one of the priority projects from the Charbonneau Consolidated Plan to replace that pipeline. 3 weeks after that pipeline picture was taken, during a heavy rainstorm, the bank of the Willamette River collapsed right at that pipeline location. And you can see the emergency repair that was occurring in the photo on the right. So City Council had to declare an emergency. And we had to get contractors and engineers out there immediately to make that repair. That repair was temporary. We did have to come back later and do the final replacement of that pipeline. So when you think about what the impacts are of deferred maintenance or deferring some of these replacement projects, you're talking about replacing the same pipe 2 times, once in an emergency and then doing the final one. And then you also have, you can see the impacts to the properties in that photo. Those properties lost land that they did not get back. And luckily in this case, nobody was injured when that landslide took place. So, what is the condition of some of the pipelines today? I thought that would be helpful to show and why, the need for additional funding in the stormwater capital program is needed. This is an example of, this is a existing storm line that runs through the Charbonneau Golf Course. You can see that it runs from about the clubhouse to French Prairie Road, and it's pretty close to some residences that are along the golf course there. This project was number 36 of 37 in the Charbonneau Consolidated Plan. So when you think about when this project was originally scheduled for replacement, there's about 20 years left in that plan, so you're 19 years from now, this pipe was supposed to be in the schedule being replaced. Last year, in 2024, the residents there started noticing some sinkholes developing in the ground outside their residence, and the Public Works came out to inspect that pipeline, and that's a video from inside the pipeline in 2024. And you can see that the bottom of that pipe is completely rotted away. So that's a significant concern. That's what leads to sinkholes developing and ultimately collapse of that pipe, which can then cause flooding. So this project is currently under design right now. We do not have construction funding available to construct this project without a utility rate increase. So what I wanted to point out is there were supposed to be 35 stormwater projects in advance of this one. And by delaying or going through deferred maintenance, we're not able to make all of the Charbonneau Consolidated Plan improvements efficient and cost-effective as was planned. We start having to raise these other projects in priority. And instead of replacing the water, sewer, storm, roads, all in the same area at the same time, we end up having to do this piecemeal, which adds costs and has additional impacts to those residents. And that was the purpose of the plan, was to avoid that from happening. The other example I wanted to show you is the Miley Road Stormwater Improvements Project. This is an $11.3 million project, estimated cost. It's about a mile long and provides stormwater service to about a third of the Charbonneau area. So back in 2021, we did have a section of this pipeline collapse and had to be reconstructed under an emergency. You can see in the picture on the left, it started with a sinkhole in somebody's backyard. Again, luckily nobody was injured, but if somebody had fallen into that, it'd be very serious. The picture on the right is the emergency reconstruction. You can see that the brick wall had to be removed. There were significant impacts to the adjacent residents' backyards, and there was some significant tree removal. I wanted to point out that this work was just temporary. That pipeline still is under that brick wall because the brick wall was put back, people's yards were restored. When we come back with this Miley Road project, that pipeline's going to get replaced. So again, we're doing the same work twice, once under an emergency and then once for the final fix. So here's some photographs of kind of the issues we're dealing with out on Miley Road right now. The picture on the left is the outfall that's near I-5. You can see where that outfall has eroded a pretty sizable hole in the ground, to the point where it's starting to undermine the outfall pipe, and that pipe is actually hanging in the air right now. If that were to collapse, we would again be in an emergency situation, having to fix that outfall, because if it were to collapse, it would start backing up water and possibly causing flooding. The picture in the center is from inside the Miley Road pipe. That picture is from 2021, and again, you can see the condition of the pipe is very poor. The bottom of the pipe is rotting away. This is the same conditions that led to that pipeline collapsing earlier in 2021. And then the picture on the right is from December 18th. After a heavy rainfall, Miley Road was flooded, and there were a number of cars that were, from what I understand, were stuck in that got stuck in that flooding. People in Charbonneau were not able to get in and out. So significant impact from that stormwater pipeline. So I hope some of those, they give you an example of the urgency that we're facing with the condition of some of the stormwater pipelines within Wilsonville. And to finish up, the staff recommendation is to adopt Resolution 3230, Option 2, which would establish the new stormwater rates. It'll implement an annual inflation adjustment, discontinue the stormwater utility rate exemptions, and then repeal the old resolutions establishing the rates 2507 and 2353. And these are a summary of the options that were considered for your discussion.
So
Thank you.
just to,
Hey.
oh, I thought you moved me.
City Council President Berry.
Just to clarify, staff is changing the recommendation from option 1 to option 2.
Yeah, correct. From the conversation on the December 15th meeting, we didn't think that council was, liked option one, so it's still a choice. But yes, we are now recommending option two.
Thank you.
Counselor Cunningham.
I don't think city council liked any of these options, but we'll get into that. Specifically mentioned in the staff report, it says that if we were to go with option 3, option 4, that Charbonneau's projects would be delayed. Why is it that Charbonneau, who's been paying rates for decades, that their project specifically would be delayed and not look at delaying other projects or rerouting funds to ensure that they're getting what they've paid for?
Yeah, so when you look at that, we can go back to that list of projects. The ones that are deferred maintenance are the ones that are the most likely to delay. Those other projects, the Beckman Creek flow mitigation, that project we're under a timeline from DEQ to finish that project. Miley Road, we just went over that one. Garden Acres Pond retrofit, that's to help serve, provide additional capacity for Coffee Creek, while also fixing flooding issues. So that project, you could delay that project, but then there's impacts to development, industrial development.
I mean, I guess that the citizens are going to look at this and they're going to point out that the ones that we're looking at not delaying are the ones that are attached to development and SDCs rather than the people who've been paying their rates for decades. Another thing that you're asking of us tonight is that we discontinue the waivers for people who are not currently paying their stormwater fees. This would be mainly people in Old Town and Montgomery Way, correct?
Yeah, that's where there's a number along Kenyon Creek South also, but the majority are along Montgomery Way and in Old Town.
And those ones who are under waivers right now, have they received any sort of stormwater construction? Do they have like an active stormwater system like you would see in other ratepayer areas?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of components to the stormwater system. Stormwater doesn't work like water or sewer, where you have a connection, you have service, right? Most of the stormwater system actually serves roadways and public facilities. So everyone benefits from the stormwater system. There are areas of Old Town where there is now stormwater service.
I just drove through Old Town on Sunday morning, and where people park their cars are large puddles and things because they don't have that traditional stormwater system like we see in my neighborhood and many other neighborhoods in the city. And if we're going to call this a just and equitable rate, I have a hard time saying that we should raise rates on people who aren't receiving the same service as others. I'll hold some questions and let other counselors go now.
Counselor Shevlin.
Thank you. Matt, could you go back to the map that shows shows Miley Road, Phase 1 and 2, please? And either you can answer this or perhaps our city manager. Is Miley Road in the city of Wilsonville?
No, it's a county road.
Right. And so could you please explain why it is that Wilsonville needs to be responsible for the Miley Road project?
Yeah, it's a city stormwater pipeline because it serves Charbonneau. It serves Wilsonville, an area of Wilsonville.
Okay, thank you. And then also, could you show the picture of the flooding of Miley Road on December 8th?
18th?
18th, yeah. My husband and I were not stuck in that water, but we were stuck in the traffic trying to get home with 2 grandchildren. And it was pretty frightening because we couldn't get off the freeway. We were heading south on I-5. Most people know I live in Charbonneau. I'm not advocating for Charbonneau over any other community, but we could not get off the Charbonneau exit. We had to go down to the next exit, 551, turn left. We tried to come up Airport Road, That was blocked. We had to wait for 45 minutes before they finally started letting a little bit of traffic through. We made it home through a roundabout way. We could not get through that intersection. It was closed. What I was most concerned about was we had to activate our Charbonneau emergency plan because we have, of course, the demographic are seniors and elderly people, and we have a very large senior assisted living facility on campus. And so we became very concerned because even the way that we were able to go down a wrong way street to be able to get home, I don't believe that emergency vehicles could have gotten through there. So we had to activate our emergency plan so that TVF&R was aware that if we had any need for emergency vehicles, it was going to be very difficult for them to be able to get through that. Now, by I think 6 a.m. the next morning, it was cleared, but I was in conversation with our city manager during that time, and we were very concerned about the entire system or much of the system collapsing. So these are real-world situations. I don't mind getting home late. Grandkids ended up having to spend the night and then get up at 6 a.m. so we could take them to their school in West Lynn. That's doable, but it's the emergency situations that I worry about, where people are either stuck in their vehicle in water or emergency vehicles cannot respond to them. Thank you.
Councilor Cunningham.
I will advocate for the Charbonneau neighborhood. They've been paying rates for a long time, and so I think that they do need to ensure that what we do does ensure that they have a working stormwater system that's promised as a part of the checks that they write to our city every month. You said that the one pipe, it was supposed to be replaced 19 years from now, right? How
Yes,
old
correct.
is that? How old is that pipe as it is now?
That specific pipe, I don't have the date on, but most of the pipelines were built in the 70s.
And what was the expected lifetime of those pipes?
Well, of a corrugated metal pipe, it's about 25 to 30 years.
That's a lot of deferred maintenance if we're supposed to replace that thing in 19 years. Earlier you mentioned that if we were to remove Day Road completely from this list right here, that it would only save us 10 cents off of the rates completely.
Yeah, we didn't have their financial consultant FCS group run the analysis, but when we look at the data, you're removing about 10% of the total project cost, but when you figure in operations and maintenance costs, it does end up to be about 10 cents, yes, on the rate.
I'm not a mathematician. That seems pretty incredible with the $17.70 proposed rate increase. That's only a half a percent of that entire rate increase over the next 3 years. And so the math ain't mathin' for me personally, but I guess they're the experts. And then also, according to the staff report, we've seen an escalation of construction costs at 53.8%, right?
Yeah, that's what's reported by the FHWA.
Looking at these rate increases, we're looking at 150% rate increase over 3 years. Again, the math for me ain't mathin'. If we have a 53% increase in construction costs, and this will be more in deliberation later, but that means that we got behind somewhere and that maintenance has been deferred and leadership has been deferred on this, and that's all the questions I have.
I'm going to ask something, and I apologize to staff because probably is coming out of left field. Hypothetically, if there is a future vote on urban renewal for the town center, and say it passes, is there anything conceivable that urban renewal district could help with some of the expense we're here about today?
That's a good question. We have to go back through the project list. There might be a few projects that could be included, in that boundary, however it's created. That could help, yeah. There was the urban renewal, they're not, as part of the town center plan, there are stormwater and sewer line and water line that need to be relocated. The assumption was in the master plans is the developers would do all of that. So it's not, those projects are not in the rate study currently.
Just a comment, just my perspective. I mean, there is no good answer. No one's going to be happy. And it's kind of like, if we look back at what we could have, should have, would have, it really doesn't matter. It's what do we do now? What's our next move? And I've, in this community, had concerns about Kinder Morgan deferring maintenance and inspection of the Kinder Morgan pipeline. I'm currently pissed off, as delicately, I guess that's not delicate, with the legislature that's trying to shear some money off on trying to get the Boone Bridge replaced. And my view has been, we need to fix it now so a disaster doesn't happen later. So I understand our household's going to be hurt. But there are a lot of households that may hurt worse than ours. But what answer is it if we defer it down the road? And I think politically, I see counselors kicking things, council kicks it down the road. And from this particular council member, I think kicking it down the road is more of a danger to our community than it is trying to make a final decision. And, I want to defer any further questions and input after I hear from the public, but that's just kind of my global assessment on things. City Council President Barry.
Just to add on top of what you just said, that once we get this resolved, then in the report, you highlight that starting, let's see, it says the stormwater rate increase adopted will go into effect March 1st, 2026, and then January 1st of each year after that. At the time the stormwater rate increase implementation schedule is completed, so like the end of the 3 or the 5 years, whichever ends up being voted on, then going forward, an annual inflationary adjustment will begin and continue each year after. And so that will help prevent getting us into a predicament like what we're in now.
Yeah, that's correct. Currently, there is no annual inflationary increase on utility rates except for the road maintenance fee.
Thank you. I'd really like to hear what the public has to say.
Okay, anything further? Okay. For public testimony, we will start with people who signed up in advance to testify. Please remember to include your name and address for the record. Staff and people have signed up in advance who, well, I already know who the first person is, but they tell me to read this anyway. Doris Whaler.
My name is Doris Whaler. My contact information is on file. Mayor and councilors, I'm speaking in opposition to Resolution 3230 because it puts growth on the back of existing ratepayers. 2 of the projects, Garden Acres Pond retrofit and Down Day Road stormwater improvements, are slated to add $15.8 million of cost. This is about 40% of the total project costs, so I find it a little difficult to believe that if we took that project away, it would only affect rates by 10 cents. I listened to your work session earlier tonight and heard all the reasons why the Day Road stormwater improvements should be paid for out of should not be paid for out of urban renewal funds. Basically, the staff's report said the district could not afford and still move ahead with all the other infrastructure needed. Then I listened to the staff explain how the city will aggregate and buy land in Coffee Creek. Then the city will sell the land to developers at a loss, with the hope that the state might some point reimburse the city for their losses. Does this plan seem fiscally sound? I do realize that the city has been very unsuccessfully promoting Coffee Creek development for about 10 years. At one point, I even worked on form-based code. We spent a lot of time, the developers didn't care. So our answer appears to be, let's charge ratepayers for growth that the developers won't pay for. Monthly ratepayers are already financially strapped, and now you want them to pay for growth. You give lip service to affordability, but actions you are proposing tonight fly in the face of affordability. Growth needs to pay for growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick, Tom?
Good evening. Name is Patrick Thom. My address is on the speaker card. One thing that's important to continue to realize, and I do appreciate it, is that transparency is what allows the residents to trust and understand both the city employees and the council members. The citizens of the city is what makes the city. And the voices that have been heard both back in December and what will be coming later tonight, as well as what's already been stated, shows that we have asked for more options. And what we've been given have been rate changes. In my work as a public employee, we're always held to this standard to check all options to see what's available, what might be available through other grants or community service projects, boards, or if there's even available federal grants that may be available. If my recollection is correct, I remember hearing that there were options that were provided through other cities for their projects through federal grants. What I've heard tonight, understanding that delaying some of these projects will cause a higher problem in the near future or further future, is has the city explored all of those options? Have they looked for other state, county, or federal grants that are available? Within my own line of work, I'm held to a legal obligation of reasonable or active efforts in what I do for the people that I work for and serve. So my question in that is, has the city gone and looked at to find any of those reasonable or active efforts to help mitigate some of these costs so that we can fill these duties to prevent any disasters in the future while also not harming the current pain that the increased rates can be seen in the current economic crisis that we're currently experiencing? Thank you.
I have a question of staff. This speaker has brought up some good points. It'd be interesting to let the public know what efforts we have to look at other sources and the reasons why those sources don't work or do, but I think it's helpful for transparency that we have a clear answer on that for them.
Grants? Is that what you're referring to?
Grants or any other funding mechanism, state or federal level, that may help with some of these projects.
Yeah, we have and we do. We have a low-interest loan with the state of Oregon for a sewer project for Frog Pond. We're constantly looking for additional revenue sources to do all kinds of different projects, including the Boom Bridge project. We've received grants for smart transit for both operations and for capital. We're actively pursuing grants and low-interest loans, federal, state, and regional. And we're successful in doing that. But in terms of stormwater, there's no dedicated funding source for a community of our size with our demographics. Now, there are certain rural Oregon communities that can tap into low-interest loans for something like this, or even some grants from the federal and state, but it's very competitive. But we're always looking, and of course, we're searching for additional funds. The other portion for stormwater is system development charges, and as mentioned earlier, this council and previous councils, every council I've worked with in the last 15 years has made sure that those SDCs are set at the highest possible rate that we can, as defensible by law, to make sure that developers are paying their fair share. So in that regard, the city council and previous councils has done their job in that area. So yes, we have, and we do, and we'll continue to.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler. Karen Bradley?
I'm going to defer to what's being said.
So, okay, thank you. Ruth Webster?
Hello, good evening. My name is Ruth Webster. My information is on my card. I'll keep it short and sweet. Because a lot of what has been said, I agree with. And I just want to appreciate all of your efforts in taking this seriously and listening to us. And just given the cost that everything is going up, I hope that council really exercises fiscal prudence on this one. Finding that difficult balance between prescience and short-sightedness through what I hope will be a very thoughtful and robust conversation that weighs many options and takes into account many different perspectives. And then also, just personally, I just want to express, as a citizen, that it takes a lot to be engaged in this and to do your research, looking through stormwater rates and digging through data. There's other fun things I think people would rather be doing. But I just want to say that, the people that come here, they do it because they really care about the city. And you guys have that benefit. And I just ask that you keep that in mind. Like, everybody that's here really cares about the city. They don't share the same perspective, obviously, but we're here because we care, right? So anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jim Warham?
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Jim Warm, and my contact information is on the card. I provided the council members with an extensive list of comments that I had, and so I'm going to pare it down just to a few key points that I'd like to emphasize tonight. The first one being the affordability analysis. It was my understanding from the December 15th meeting that was going to also include the rate increases from stormwater, not just the sanitary sewer water. I can be corrected if I misunderstood that. The next thing I wanted to provide, based on the comments from the city staff, is pointing out several projects that I feel we do have the option of eliminating, or certainly coming up with a new idea for. The first one is our water well. That well has not been used since 2002. We've not needed it for 23 years. And so I'm curious on why we're spending $400,000 on something that it seems like we could mothball it for a while until we have the money to do the restorations that we need. And so I just want to make sure that the city is looking at all options instead of spending money on a well that we're not even using. The second project that I'd like to point out is the Frog Pond conveyance pipeline. That project's for just over $4 million. That's taking a large diameter stormwater pipe to manage all the stormwater coming off this new development. The Department of Environmental Quality, under the stormwater rules and the underground injection control rules, allow for large-scale cistern systems to be installed. And if you do a little research on that, you'll see that that's even, there's examples of that for community developments. And so it seems wise to me to put in large-scale cisterns that are going to have less maintenance than half a mile of pipeline and a new outfall on the river. If you pursue that, now we are not dumping all of that water into the Beckman Creek, which then allows you to take the Ash Meadows flow mitigation project, and that project, I think, can be rescoped at best, if not just outright eliminated, because you're not dumping all that water into the Beckman Creek. And then the last one that I think that, was easy fodder for the city to come back and say, yes, we can cut one project, and that is porous pavement. That's proven technology. We do not need to spend $100,000 to try some porous pavement in our town. And so if nothing else, can we just cut $100,000 from this budget? And then lastly, based on some other comments, restoration funding, I provided a long list of funding sources under the American Rivers Organization, specifically two that I think that we would be considered for is from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, their Core Water Infrastructure Financing Program and their Environmental Infrastructure Assistance. And so heard from staff that they are investing in all these funding sources. And with that, my time is up, and I appreciate your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Michelle Dempsey?
Good evening. My name is Michelle Dempsey, and my address is on file. Boy, what a pickle this is. I came in with a testimony, and I've been rewriting it as I've heard the staff report. I was really disappointed that none of the three new stormwater funding alternatives showed any cost-cutting effort on the part of the city. And now to hear that it may not even be possible is just a whole new twist. With such strong opposition voiced at the last public hearing regarding these extreme rate increases, I was wondering why citizens' pleas for fiscal restraint, slowed or deferred growth, having developers finance their own projects, none of them were in any of the options. And it's just, I just am trying to swallow and fathom how we find ourselves here. And then on top of all of it, there's Old Town and the Canyon Creek and the third area that aren't even on the stormwater system. And these stormwater fees really should reflect actual services to houses that are currently served by the existing stormwater system. So those outside of the system should not be unnecessarily taxed or charged, or whatever word you want to use. If it's not a tax, it's a charge. The storm utility rate exemption really shouldn't be eliminated. These massive increases to stormwater, I just worry, with proposed fees on parks and greatly increased utility rates, grocery price increases, and now I'm reading about possible increases to property taxes in Clackamas County. The list just goes on and on and on. And in these uncertain times of high inflation, all these financial increases so close together are just going to be so devastating to so many Wilsonville residents. And these financial burdens are going to force some people, especially the elderly, those on fixed incomes, and those at the lower end of the income spectrum, out of their homes because they're no longer going to be able to afford to live in Wilsonville. It's as simple as that. It just seems there's got to be a way to return to the drawing board and find some options that cost less. And most importantly, any future growth should pay for itself. Wilsonville may be divided over the pace of planned growth, but we've been very clear that we shouldn't have to subsidize it. Thank you.
Thank you. Libby Crawford?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Libby Crawford, and my address is on the speaker card. I'm here this evening to support the responsible infrastructure funding and equally in support of strong financial planning that protects the long-term health of our city. I know this topic brings strong emotions because it affects every household in this community. Like everyone here, I want Wilsonville to maintain financially strong in a place where people can afford to call it home. Most residents understand that maintaining critical infrastructure is not an option. Pipes must be repaired and flooding must be prevented. The real question before us is how do we do this wisely without overwhelming the very people who you're asking to fund it? We can protect our infrastructure without overwhelming our residents. These goals should exist together. I'd like to briefly offer what I call a citizen alternative infrastructure plan, one designed to protect our system while creating long-term financial stability. First, consider a phased approach to rate increases rather than large increases all at once. Predictability builds public trust and allows families, seniors, small businesses to plan ahead while still funding critical repairs. I call it like a 15-3, for 15% for 3 years, pause for 5 years, do it again for another 3, pause for 5, building a safety net with those increases. Secondly, establish a legally protected infrastructure reserve fund, meaning locked in for the purpose only, not a slush fund to take from. For increases, and any grants or additional funds can go into this, dedicated solely to stormwater maintenance, repairs, and emergencies. Strong financial guardrails today help prevent the far greater cost of deferred maintenance for tomorrow. Third, provide residents with a clear visibility to all citizens into the system they are being asked to fund, including pipe age, risk levels, placement timelines. Transparency builds confidence and strengthens the community partnership, and I appreciate what was said today. Fourth, I encourage the creation of a citizen-led infrastructure advisory board with finance, engineers, and grant writing expertise to help pursue state and federal funding. If residents are being asked to invest more, they should also be invited to be part of the solution. This is a defining governing moment for Wilsonville and for this council. The decisions made here will shape both the reliability of the infrastructure and financial expectations placed on our future residents. I thank you all for your service to our community.
Thank you. Dwight Sims.
Good evening, Council. My name is Dwight Sims. My address is on the card. Recently, while walking along Beckman Road, just east of Kinsman Road, I stopped to read a sign posted by the city next to the sidewalk. The title was, quote, "Rethinking Stormwater Management, a Green Infrastructure Approach." I found in the text the following statement, quote, "The city of Wilsonville promotes sustainable management techniques that filter pollutants, reduce volume, and decrease the temperature of stormwater runoff," end quote. Those techniques include collecting much of that water in swales, rain gardens, vegetated planters, and reconstructed wetlands. Right across the street from the sign I was reading is the newly restored 64-acre Coffee Lake Creek wetlands between Kinsman Road and the Villebois neighborhood. This project, and I hope you've all seen it, removed the narrow north to south channel which used to run through it and created 6 new ponds plus 4,400 linear feet of swales and channels. It was frankly great to see the hundreds of ducks and geese fly in to check it out, and it certainly looks a lot nicer than the dry, weed-covered land that it was before the restoration. More importantly, it now provides a perfect example of a low-impact, green infrastructure development which absorbs and filters stormwater while providing natural habitat, something that concrete pipes can never do. And even though, get this, 33,000 cubic yards of soil were moved back and forth, it was built without ripping up a single street. It's miraculous. Out of curiosity, I did a little research and found that this natural stormwater handling approach has been successful elsewhere in numerous cities, including Portland, Oregon. In the early 1990s, the city of Portland had a stormwater problem in what they called the Tabor to River corridor. The estimate to solve this problem using a traditional pipe-only approach was $144 million. Instead, by using green infrastructure elements, as mentioned above, the estimated cost dropped from $144 million to $81 million, a savings of $63 million, 44% off the original estimate. Overall, Portland cut stormwater runoff volume by 35% citywide and pollution by up to 90%. Interestingly, Portland's stormwater collection features considered the best in the nation, use only 5 to 7% of the city's total land area. I believe that Wilsonville can do likewise, saving utility ratepayers 40% or more on stormwater costs. Portland's well-documented Green Streets program shows the way. Secondly, shouldn't the Coffee Lake Creek wetlands, which became operational just weeks ago, count as existing stormwater infrastructure, dramatically reducing the need for future pipe-only construction? I hope the city can, quote, think outside the rate increase box and do this the smart and green way. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne Hickey.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Hickey. I'm a resident of Wilsonville, and my personal information is on file. I'm not here to speak on behalf of or against the vote that will be taken tonight for the stormwater rate proposal. My concern is how the council has arrived at this decision and other decisions. I'm concerned that this council has already made a decision prior to hearing any testimony. Having attended several recent council meetings, I've noticed that the council listens to the testimony or appears to listen to the testimony and then votes, as though it never heard a word of what the community said. Federal law has the Hatch Act, which prohibits less than a full council meeting to discuss thoughts about any particular item under consideration. And Oregon has a similar statute called the Oregon Meeting Law, which also restricts less than a full council from meeting to discuss upcoming items to be voted on. And just in case any of the council members might not be familiar with these laws, and a lot of people are not because they're just volunteers, a violation is punishable by a $1,000 fine, and if repeated, you could actually carry jail time. This is something to be very aware of because many part-time or volunteer elected officials don't realize they also fall under the same rules as the high-priced state and federal legislators. I have a feeling that casual discussions may be taking place prior to the full council meeting and hearing public input, something that should be considered. If you allow public testimony and then immediately bring an item to vote, you are not looking out for the best interest of the community. Sometimes serious issues such as stormwater rate increases and any other rate increases need to be tabled until a better solution is determined, or adopt a procedure where, one, you allow 1 minute more than you currently allow, and give and take. If we have questions, you answer them if you can. If you can't, it gets noticed and they are followed up. But I hear that all you do is listen to what we say or whatever, and then next go, okay, Joe Smith, next guy up. And then you vote. It's like the vote has already been decided, and I think that's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Peters.
Mayor and Council, I'm Elizabeth Peters, and you have all my information. I'm just really impressed with some of the testimonies that we've had here tonight. And I was so impressed after the last meeting at the quality of those who came forward to testify. We have some incredible skill and talent and capability within our citizens here, and I just really appreciate everyone who came and spoke. Whether I agree with you or not, I really appreciate you being here and speaking. So I'm trying not to repeat what I heard, but I just want to say, this new set of scenarios, it still puts a heavy burden on our neighbors who are on fixed income and those who can least afford it. Now, I understand we have to address issues that were put off due to previous poor leadership. I really do feel that any future growth should pay for itself. So those projects that were, that are covered by SDCs, I do feel like we need to prioritize the Charbonneau and the Miley Road projects, those projects that were put off due to bad leadership in the past. I also feel very strongly those outside the system should not be burdened without direct benefits. I oppose the notion that the exemptions, quote exemptions, should be discontinued. If they're not getting the service, they should not have to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Hademan?
Good evening, Councilor. Chris Heidemann, thank you all for your time. First, I want to echo Elizabeth's comments about thanking everybody for coming. It is an amazing group of people that feel passionate about this and bring their expertise to this. My recommendation would be, I think, threefold. First, I would assess the risk for each of the 5 projects of delaying it. The risks are legal risks, right? We have to do it because of legal reasons. Risks are we have to repair it, we have to do emergency repairs and then repair it later. Flooding that makes neighborhoods inaccessible, as we've heard about earlier. Citizen injury is another risk that we have to face, and each of those has a different risk profile. So which ones of those put the city at the greatest risk, the city and its citizens at its greatest risk? Those are the ones that we got to consider funding first. Maybe we lose matching funds if we don't do one or the other. It's another risk, right? Number 2, and I love the previous speaker, I added this to my fun things to talk about, innovative ways to solve these. Now we've got them in priority order. These are the ones that put the city and its citizens at the highest risk. What are the most innovative ways we could solve those? Maybe we don't have to build a pipe. Maybe a swale or something like that is both green and less expensive is the answer. And then finally, to Councilor Cunningham's comments earlier, and what Ms. Peters just said, what are the best ways to fund these? What are the fair ways to fund these, right? Maybe there are not people getting any services from the system. Maybe they should not be burdened with this. What is the rate at which we fund them, right? And you've got the 4 different plans there. Different residential rate payers, commercial entities, and so on. Okay, so that's kind of my recommendation. Assess the risk of each of the 5, innovative solutions, and then what's the fair way to pay for the ones that are most critical for the city to solve. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Does any counselor need anything clarified by other members after hearing the speaker? Well, I do. I've heard, I try to treat all speakers equally. I'm going to identify 2 people to stand out, but that doesn't mean I'm trying to minimize anybody else. I had sent Jim Warham's testimony to staff after receiving it, and I didn't know if we could have staff comment. Are they prepared to comment? They are not. Okay, and I heard Chris Heidemann's ideas this evening as well. Is that something that staff would probably need to have time to take into account? Okay, and I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. Those two, and everybody's input's been very helpful. And so those two just kind of, they singled out some proposed plans out there that I captured. And I really, from my one vote on council, would like that additional information from staff, at least an understanding. Mr. Heidelman, you had some ideas. If that, is that a issue that's in a written piece? Can you submit that to the city recorder? And anybody else that also provided, submit to the city recorder, I'd appreciate that. With that, are any counselors need anything clarified after hearing anything from public testimony? Councilor Shevlin?
Are we also going to have an opportunity to speak about our, or is this the time for us to speak about the options or anything that anyone said? I don't know that I need anything clarified.
Yeah, we're just going through the process. Right now, I have this, we have to, if we have any questions based on any public input that we've heard, or any questions that trigger a staff question because of that public input, and I was just identifying two members of the public that provided some input that I would want some additional information on.
I don't know that I need any clarification, but I feel badly that there is a citizen that feels that we all talk ahead of time and then make our decisions. We do not do that. We may not do that. So I'm sorry that people feel that that's the case. We so go out of our way to make sure that we don't discuss anything that is going to come before the council that has to be made, that we have to make a decision on. We do not do that. Please know. So I'm sorry that people feel that way. I'd like to get clarification from our legal representation that if we have 4 people here, we may not vote on this issue tonight. Is that correct?
No, we
You can
I
vote.
know,
we
but
can
that's
vote.
what a citizen said we couldn't, if we don't have a full council, we can't vote. So I
Yeah.
just need some clarification
Yes,
on that.
since you have a quorum of council, your quorum of council can take action, and then it requires a majority vote of the quorum that is here.
Thank you. That's all I have for now. I'd like to speak later when it.
Okay, thank you. Any, oh,
We received that letter this morning, so I'm not sure we would have a robust response, but if you want to respond to some of the
I mean, if council wants, I can talk about some of the projects, questions about projects that were raised.
go ahead.
It was mentioned about the well discharge pipeline. It's a Gashel shaft well. That well is our backup water supply system and is exercised on a regular basis. It also is connected to a stormwater pipe that serves the adjacent neighborhood, the Meadows neighborhood. That existing pipeline discharges at the top of the hill and has caused significant erosion down the entire slope of the hill, of the creek, all the way to Beckman Creek. That's why it is a priority project. It's to save costs for construction of that project. We are pairing it with the Beckman Creek Interceptor pipeline. So there's some cost savings of doing those projects together because they're in the same area. So that well is still active and is our backup water supply. Frog Pond Pipeline, the Frog Pond East and South Pipeline, that's 100% developer SDC funded. It's not have a utility rate component to that project. Ash Meadows was mentioned. That project is a very complicated project. Back in the 70s, when the Xerox campus was developed, they did it out of what's called an out-of-basin transfer. They pushed their stormwater from one basin into a different basin. There's a flow control structure in Beckman Creek that prevents that flow from going downstream. We are being required to remove that flow control structure. So that project is to put that water back in the old drainage basin. That project is actually going to be constructed this summer. We are under a timeline to have that project done. as I mentioned earlier. The porous pavement project, this is not just typical porous pavement. This is Gresham and the city of Gresham and the city of Milwaukee are showing some success of thin porous pavement overlays that helps treat the stormwater and improve water quality. This is a new technology, and they're showing really good results. And it's something that we think we should be looking at because it will help save costs down the road if we're able to make that successful. If we're able to overlay an existing street with porous pavement, not the whole street is porous, just the top few inches, and improve water quality without having to build swales that are expensive to maintain and costly to construct. It's something that could help save costs down the road. So I would say that Wilsonville is innovative. We're one of the first cities to implement green streets and swales and water quality facilities, starting with Villebois before a lot of cities were even doing that. So a lot of things that were mentioned are things that the city has already doing and it has been doing for a long time. When it comes to future growth, the stormwater projects aren't related to growth, or they're not based on future growth. The projects that are listed in the Stormwater Master Plan are projects that are needed for growth, for development that's happening now. So Coffee Creek, Basalt Creek, Frog Pond, and those projects, their growth components are funded by SDCs. So the developers are paying for those projects. Now, a lot of those projects have a component that are serving existing areas that have existing flooding issues or existing water quality issues. So there is a existing customers component to those projects that are funded by the utility rates. I know Brian talked about other grants available. We're always looking for grants, but there just aren't grants out there that are secure enough that would take the place of regular funding.
Can you address the issue of the accounts that aren't currently tied into our stormwater plan? Is that there's no impact, so they should pay no fee? Because I know that that's not 100% accurate. So could you address that?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about this last time, and the stormwater fee covers a lot. Like I said, it covers roads that people use. There's a good example is on Montgomery Way. A lot of people on Montgomery Way don't pay a stormwater fee, but Rose Lane is a culvert project in the plan that benefits just the people on Montgomery Way. So if they're not paying into replacing that culvert, then the other community members that do pay the rate are paying for that project. So there's also, we have our MPDS permit that we implement. That applies to everyone who lives in Wilsonville. That has costs associated with it. We have projects that are associated with that. Those are general citywide benefit projects that benefit everybody. We also have stream restoration projects.
We tend to speak in acronyms as engineers and city managers.
MPDS.
Yeah, can you explain MP and why we can't avoid that, and how those are things that we're told we have to do, it's not optional?
Yeah, that's our stormwater permit that's issued through DEQ. We have to comply with that permit. So we constantly have to be improving water quality runoff, managing stormwater in compliance with that permit.
And the folks that aren't currently paying, we've done some back of the envelope calculations about how much additional that would bring in the annual storm. It's not a huge amount.
It's not a huge amount.
But if we don't have that, then that's going to be passed on to everybody else who's paying those rates. Is that not correct?
Right.
Okay.
And I think what was mentioned at the last meeting is, if you lived along the river and discharged directly to the Willamette River, then maybe your impact is a lot less. But even if you discharge, in the case of Old Town, to the roadway, there's catch basins at the ends of those roadways that collect that stormwater. They might not have curbs that direct that stormwater directly to those like everyone else, but it does provide service to that area.
Is there anything else from staff?
That's it, yeah.
City Council President Barry.
So, thank you for coming back and giving some extra explanations. Can you just go over one more time why there hasn't been an increase in stormwater for 10 years? Like I think you mentioned that there was the significant increase with construction costs, and that we just got the stormwater master plan adopted in 2024, and the economy and COVID, and I mean, it seems like there were a bunch of reasons.
Yeah,
Can
so.
you explain that?
Yeah, it was kind of a lot of things coming together all at once. There was, the last master plan was done, I don't have the exact date in front of me, but I think it was 2014. And the last rate analysis was done shortly thereafter. That included the Charbonneau consolidated plan at that time. We did have significant cost increase, inflation between 2021 and 2023 that we had mentioned. And then in 2024, we had the new stormwater master plan adopted, and that has a new 20-year look at what's needed over the next 20 years. And in 8 to 10 years, we'll do that whole process again, and there'll be a new list of projects that are going to be needed for the next 20 years. So one thing to consider is like these projects don't go away. They just get added onto if they get delayed.
Any other questions at this point? Okay, at this point, is there anybody who hasn't testified in the audience or online that wishes to give public testimony? Okay, now council, let's see, with that, hearing no further questions, everyone having testified hereby declare the public hearing closed at 9:21 p.m. It is now time for council to consider resolution number 3230. Or any other motion that we want to have. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 3230 or any other motion for council to consider?
Thank you, everybody. I move that we adopt resolution, will you tell me the numbers one more time? 31. I don't have it in front of me.
Resolution number 3230.
Yeah, 322, I'm sorry, getting late. 3230. With option number 2 as staff recommended.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Councilor Shevlin.
Thank you. Thank you all, everyone, from December 15th and for tonight for your testimony. Even at the 11th hour, which we heard from 2 citizens that have good experience in city planning, city infrastructure, and we appreciate that. We really did get them at the 11th hour, and as you heard, we're trying to take a look at some of those and see how we might explore those even further. Some of the things, I believe Mr. Weigel shared that we're not able to do, but we will continue to look at opportunities. First, I want to say it's very convenient for us or anyone to sit here in this room and say, well, somebody didn't do a very good job before us. I'm sorry. I don't believe that to be true. I believe that our city leaders, elected leaders, and city managers have always done their best. I don't believe we have any evidence of anyone mismanaging their role or their opportunity or the funds that come before our leaders. It's just too easy to be able to say those guys did it poorly, and now here we are stuck. I believe they made the best decisions that they could at the time, given what they were dealing with. And as Mr. Weigel just pointed out, the Stormwater Improvement Plan was only just approved in 2024. So that's when it's really become apparent that we needed to be able to act. So I respect the work that our leaders, both elected and employed, have done for many, many years for our city. But today, we're faced with, as some of you have pointed out, we all know, some very, very tough decisions. Every city in the region, in the state, even in the country, are dealing with cost escalations and utility rate increases. And if they're not dealing with them this year, they'll be dealing with them next year. They're tough. No one wants to have to make these decisions, but we sit here now, and you elected us, and you've asked us to make decisions for you. We know we have failing infrastructure. We've seen pictures of it. At the same time, costs are skyrocketing, and people are finding it very, very hard to make ends meet. I was dismayed to hear from the testimony that we just listen and then we vote. That's not what we did on December 15th. We listened, we said no. We cannot make decisions based on the information that we had. We needed more. And we asked our city staff to go back, even though they had worked hard and through the help of experts, consultants, made a proposal to us. We asked them to go back and work harder. And that's what they did. So we stopped. We did not vote. We extended the public hearing from December 15th to now. So we don't just listen and then vote. We take our responsibilities very, very seriously. So we did ask the staff to go back, and they did the work that we asked them to do. Maybe it's not everything that makes everyone happy, but it gave us some options that we didn't have before. But, as it was pointed out, we have to assess our risk. And that's tough. That's really tough. Because now we have to decide, what do we put off that we already know is failing? How long do we extend that time for areas that we know need the work now? And what are the risks if a homeowner's property is damaged because we didn't make a decision, or a homeowner, a citizen, is hurt? Those are all the risks, and we know those are the risks that we're weighing. Thank you for pointing it out, the person that gave us that testimony. That's what's weighing on us now. So I thank the experts that shared their input with us. I really appreciate your experience in cities and how you've been able to share things with us. But we have our experts too. I trust Mr. Weigel. I trust the consultants that we have hired to try to make our decisions and make sure that we have the information for us so we can make our decisions. And now we have to take all of this information into account, and we have to determine what's the best route, what's the best decision for our city. We've heard you. We will continue to hear you, and I'm sure that we will continue to look for opportunities to save money, to divert stormwater. And then when we come forward with sewer and water in the future, we'll continue to look for opportunities. So you asked us to go back to the drawing board in December. That's what we've done. Now we have some new figures on the drawing board. And I believe, at least for myself, I have the decision to make. I have the information I need to make a decision. Thank you.
Councilor Cunningham.
Thank you. I was speaking with a group of citizens this week about these rate increases. one of the things that I told them is that sometimes the best decision is a terrible decision. There's lots of examples of that in all kinds of things. You go back, when I was a kid, I'd watch a History Channel all the time, watch all kinds of World War II stuff, and you see all these battles where the only option was to just go and do it, and it was rough, and the solution was terrible, but it was the best thing that they had. We might be in that situation here. We can't get in the time machine and go back 20, 30 years when those pipes were still past their age span and fix it. We have to deal with it today. With that, though, we can't just do this to our citizens with nothing else. We can't do this in a vacuum. We have to find a way to realign the way that we look at these things and we make these decisions. Can you pull up page 343 of the budget that I sent over? We have to realign the way we do things. We have to realign our priorities and the way that we approach these things. And when I read the staff report and I saw that Charbonneau's projects were the first thing on the chopping block, it disgusted me. Charbonneau has been paying their rates dutifully for decades. Their project shouldn't be the one put to the back of the line. We've heard a lot of discussion. We've had a lot of discussions. We've heard a lot of opinions about urban renewal and the way it's applied and the way it's used and what it can do and what it builds for us and how if you go drive through our city, everything that you see seems to be built by urban renewal. Well, we have projects up here in Coffee Creek in the middle of an urban renewal district that aren't being paid for, and they're asking you to pay for them now. What happened to no new taxes? I cannot in good faith push this through tonight, especially with the stormwater waivers being put in at 100%. If Old Town is getting 50% of the value of what they're paying, then let's charge them 50%. If Montgomery Way is getting 30% of their value of what they're paying, charge them 30%. But they're not getting 100%. Old Town specifically asked, you all can look it up, there's an Old Town master plan that the neighbors in Old Town asked, do not come in, do not build this infrastructure here. We don't want it. We want to keep our neighborhood just the way it is. We don't want you to do this and spend the money here. So they didn't sign up for Netflix Premium. They took the Netflix, with ads. And now we're going to charge them a premium price? And this is the alignment and this is the priorities I talk about. Here's our Stormwater Fund 5-year forecast. That's that dotted blue line, that's our reserves. That's what we're projecting where our reserves go. Our priorities have to get realigned. We have to look at these things again because we can't look at something like that and say, this is fine, while the city hall is burning down around us. I don't know, maybe Keith Katko can add to this conversation, but does that 5-year forecast, does that include what we were looking at maybe implementing here tonight, or is that without?
Sorry.
We can't add staff for any input here?
Yeah, we're past the point of asking. Yeah.
Very well. Anyways, that's your city's stormwater fund budget. That's what it looks like. It adds to the questions of how we look at our budget, how we approach those things, who we're putting on those boards. I'll take a break and let other counselors talk if they want.
Keep going.
Wanted to make sure I
Thank you
wasn't.
for asking.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
So on the back end of this, we can't make this decision in a vacuum. We can't do it without anything that we're offering back to the community as a solution, as an approach to make this better, to say, yeah, this sucks, but we're going to do something with it. So somebody brought up a citizen infrastructure committee. Maybe we need more oversight from our community on this. Maybe we need to offer that transparency and that approach so that our citizens can look at this and have a say and look at a 45-year-old pipe 20 years past its lifespan that wasn't supposed to be replaced for another 20 years. That was going to be a 65-year-old pipe, 40 years past the date that should have been on its tombstone. And we're going to say that there was nothing we could have figured out in the last 20, 30 years, 10 years in this town to ensure that we're not having pipes collapse in Charbonneau as they pay their rates dutifully every month, that they're having sinkholes develop under their neighborhoods, and we didn't, and previous leadership couldn't figure that out. That's not deferred maintenance, that's deferred leadership. So I ask that if we're going to vote these rates through tonight, a 50%, almost a 50% increase on you this year, that we don't do it in a vacuum, that we make a promise to our citizens, that we realign our priorities to the people who have been here, who have built this town, who have paid their rates, who have done what they were supposed to do, with a promise written in every check that they wrote to us. That check with their life and their labor behind it, because they went out and they worked 2 days a week to pay us, the government, to make sure that they were taken care of. And we haven't lived up to that promise as a city. So if you're going to push this through, we need to change the priorities, and we need to make a promise to our community about it tonight.
Finish. Okay. Thank you, Councilor Cunningham. I have a few thoughts. Again, I appreciate both Councilor Shevlin and Councilor Cunningham's very thoughtful presentation. And I'm coming back to the things that have impacted our community earlier over the years that I have seen. Concern about the Kinder Morgan pipeline, consideration about the Boone Bridge replacement, all are things that from whatever reason, and by the way, the Kinder Morgan pipeline, that's a private owner that's deferred infrastructure repairs for years until they got in trouble with the feds. So, and finally, they've done a very good job trying to get that taken care of. But deferring things only ends up with more problems. And I could think about, should we continue this meeting in March? And my view is that sewer rate discussion is pretty critical. And I don't think it would serve any purpose, since these are critical issues that need to be addressed with stormwater improvements. I respect Mr. Weigel's efforts to address some of the questions that were raised by these two prior people that testified. And I just think ultimately, no matter how long we push this meeting out, if we did, we ultimately would have unhappy people that would not be happy with these rates. I also am one that relies on experts, and the city staff has hired consultants, and unfortunately, I've heard people in the community criticize consultants, but you know, if they relied on us city councilors to try to make decisions without any sort of expertise, we would then be accused of not relying on experts to give us good decisions. And I totally appreciate citizens that provide input. I guess I question sometimes when citizens come in at the 11th hour when the issues have been, you know, we've been going through this over the years. I think that there is differences of opinion as to how our community needs to move forward. I totally agree that in retrospect, anybody can criticize a prior city council leadership for things they chose to do or not to do. But it doesn't solve the problems we have now. And the decisions we make now will impact what a future city council may turn to us and decide, did we act or we didn't act? The issue of affordability is a very critical thing for me. And I know the staff recommended bifurcating these two. So I'm just saying, if we make a decision on stormwater tonight, I really am needing an understanding of an affordability analysis done with clear priorities of projects on sewer rates, because to me, I don't bifurcate them. I connect them. Because if I'm going to make a decision tonight versus deferring, then ultimately that's going to impact what I do on the sewer rates. So with that, I'm going to join Councilor Shevlin and City Council President Berry on moving forward with, I do agree that option 2 would be the best course. But again, my vote tonight is because my expectation is when we discuss sewer rates, that we have some clear conversation on that in March. So with that, is there any other comments by anyone? Councilor Cunningham.
I just want to clarify that this resolution is called the just and equitable rates. I think it's been clearly displayed tonight that they are not just and equitable for our entire community. Those who are not hooked up to the traditional stormwater system are not receiving the full benefit, or not receiving the full go of it. Like I said, if you shouldn't be paying for the premium subscription when you don't have it. So I understand that we don't want to delay on these things. And I recognize that this decision tonight just sucks. But I don't think that y'all should say yes to this when it's clearly not just and equitable. It's just not. They're not receiving the same benefit. A cost analysis of what construction they've passed on, what they don't have compared to what we would consider a standard ratepayer. That needs to be done, and these people should not be carrying the load for some construction that needs to happen up in Coffee Creek. It's absurd that we should go into Old Town and say, hey, y'all, you guys have been here, some of y'all longest in the city. These are some of the oldest houses in the city, and we need you to pay for some new development up there in Coffee Creek. And I know that it's been said that it's new development pays for new development, but I don't think the citizens are buying that. So, I mean, maybe I should make an amendment to at least just not call us the just and equitable rate structure. But I can't in good faith say yes to this with that still in there.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Cunningham. Councilor Shevlin.
Respectfully, Councilor Cunningham, you spoke so strongly about making sure that Charbonneau is considered, the work that's needed in Charbonneau should be just and equitable. So in that regard, there are certain populations that may consider whatever we do tonight just and equitable. I hear what you're saying about the Old Town, and I don't know if there are any options left for those citizens. But part of the work, even by your definition, does include some justice and equitability. Thank you.
With that, is there any further comment? I'll just say in closing that no decision we make tonight is going to make anybody happy. But I guess key for me and for us as a council, at least we have to make a decision. That's why we're elected, and that's where we're at. So with that, we have a motion pending. No further discussion. Let's call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, which is resolution number 3230, out of the options presented by staff, which is option 2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay. The motion passes 3-1. Okay. All right. Okay, next is turning to city manager business.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. Legal business.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay. The city council meeting is adjourned at 9:43 PM.